This one is for the Virgo, the one who stayed late again. You've done enough today. Come rest. The library closed at 7. Claire was still there at 8:30. This was not unusual. This was, in fact, so usual that the security guard, a quiet man named Derek, who had been locking up this building for 11 years, had simply started leaving her a key. Not officially, not with any paperwork. Just a key left on her desk one Tuesday morning 3 months ago with a yellow sticky note that said, "Just lock up when you're done." And that had been that. She was 25 years old, and she had been working at the Millbrook Public Library for 14 months, and she had already become, without entirely meaning to, the person everyone came to when something needed doing properly. The new cataloging system that nobody else could figure out, Claire had figured it out. The funding application that had been sitting on the director's desk for 6 weeks, Claire had finished it in a weekend. The reading program for the primary school down the road, the one that had been talked about for 2 years without anyone actually doing anything, Claire had done it. She was good at doing things. She was less good at stopping. Her desk was in the corner of the reference section, tucked between the local history shelves and the window that faced the high street. Outside, the November rain fell steadily on the empty pavement, turning the streetlights into something softer, blurring the edges of the closed shops and the parked cars, and a particular gray of a small English town on a Tuesday evening in autumn. Inside, her computer screen glowed blue-white. She had 3 tabs open. The first was the spreadsheet for next month's volunteer schedule, which she had been trying to finish for 2 hours, and which kept not quite being finished because every time she thought it was done, she noticed something else, a gap on a Thursday, a conflict on a Saturday morning, a note she'd made to herself 3 weeks ago about needing to check something that she still hadn't checked. The second was an email she was composing to the director about the budget for the children's section. She had written it 4 times. Each version was slightly different. Each version said essentially the same thing. She couldn't decide which version was right, which meant none of them had been sent. The third tab was a list. Not a work list, her list. The one she kept open always, the one that lived in a Google Doc she had titled simply Things, and that contained, at last count, 47 items ranging from respond to Mom's text about Christmas to research whether the weird sound the boiler makes is actually a problem, to be better at asking for help. That last one had been on the list for 7 months. She hadn't made much progress on it. She picked up her coffee mug. It was cold. It had been cold for an hour. She drank it anyway because getting up to make another one would take 4 minutes, and 4 minutes felt like too much right now, which she recognized even as she thought it as an irrational thought that a rational person would simply not have, the kind of thought she had about her own thoughts constantly. Meta thoughts, her friend Jess called them. Thoughts about thoughts about thoughts. Oh, she put the mug down. She looked at the spreadsheet. She looked at the email. She looked at the list. And then, for the first time in several hours, she looked up. The library was different when it was empty. During the day, it was a working place. The photocopier running, the children's section loud on Tuesdays, the regular patrons with their regular seats and their regular requests. Claire liked it. She liked the bustle and the variety and the small daily negotiations of a place that belonged genuinely and without reservation to everyone. But she also liked this. The library after hours. The way the lights in the sections she wasn't using had automatically dimmed to their overnight setting, leaving most of the room in a low blue-gray half-darkness while her corner stayed bright. The way the books looked different in the quiet, more present somehow, more themselves, as if they spent the days performing for the borrowers and the nights simply being what they were. She got up from her desk. She needed to walk, not far. Just a circuit of the floor, a tightness between her shoulder blades, a dull ache at the base of her neck, the faint headache that came from too many hours of screen light in a room that was otherwise dark. She walked through the fiction section. Her hand trailed along the spines as she went, not reading the titles, just feeling the different textures, cloth and paper, and the occasional smooth laminate of a newer acquisition. She stopped at the window. The rain was heavier now, long diagonal lines across the orange glow of the streetlight, the pavement below completely empty. The whole wet, dark street looked like the kind of scene that existed specifically to be looked at from inside a warm building by someone who didn't have to be out in it. She pressed her hand flat against the cold glass. The cold came through immediately, sharp and clean and entirely real, the most real thing she had felt all day. More real than the spreadsheet or the email or the 47 items on the list, just cold glass and warm palm and the rain outside doing what rain did, completely indifferent to spreadsheets and budgets and whether anyone's email had been sent. She stood there for a moment. Just that. She went back to her desk. She didn't open the spreadsheet. She didn't open the email. She opened the list, the real one, the 47 items. And she read through it slowly, which she almost never did. It was, she realized, a portrait of her. Not a flattering one, but an honest one. Every anxiety and unfinished thing and quietly postponed conversation and piece of herself she'd been meaning to get to when things calmed down, which they never did, because things didn't calm down. Things just generated more things. Item 14, the dentist. She'd had a slightly sensitive tooth since August. Item 22. Tell Laura that what she said at the team meeting wasn't okay. Laura had taken credit for something Claire had done, not maliciously, just thoughtlessly. Claire had not said anything. It bothered her. She had added it to the list instead. Item 31. Figure out what you actually want. She had written that one at 2 in the morning 4 months ago and had not looked at it directly since. She closed the list. Not because she'd dealt with any of it. Because she was tired of looking at it. That was new. Usually the list made her feel better. The illusion of control that came from having things written down. Tonight, the list just made her feel tired. Not tired of the items on it, tired of being the kind of person who needed a list this long. Tired of the particular vigilance of it, the constant low-level monitoring of everything that needed doing, everything that might go wrong. She was 25 years old. She was tired in a way that 25 was not supposed to feel tired. She thought about Jess, who was also 25, and somehow managed to exist in the world without a 47-item list and without lying awake at 3 in the morning running through everything that might have gone slightly less perfectly than it could have. She had asked Jess about this once. How do you just not worry about things? Jess had looked at her with genuine puzzlement. I do worry, she'd said. I just don't write it all down. Claire had not found this helpful, but she had added, talk to Jess about the list to the list. It was item 43. She shut down her computer at 9:15, not because she had finished everything. She hadn't, but she shut it down anyway, which was so unusual for her that she sat for a moment afterward looking at the dark screen as if she wasn't entirely sure she'd done it. She had done it. She put on her coat, her bag, her scarf. The green one her mother had given her for her birthday, the one she always meant to wear and always forgot until the evenings when it was too cold to have forgotten about it. She turned off her desk lamp. In the dark, the library was very quiet. Just the rain against the windows, just the low hum of the heating system. Just the books, thousands of them, waiting with the particular patience of things that had been waited for before. She stood in the middle of the reference section for a moment. She thought about the email, the 4 versions, the thing she was trying to say, which was simple. She had made it complicated. She had written and rewritten it because she kept imagining how it might be received, kept softening the language until the language barely said the thing she needed it to say. She thought about that, the softening. How much of her energy went into softening things, making sure she wasn't too much, making sure her requests were reasonable enough that no one could find them unreasonable, making sure she took up exactly the right amount of space, not too much, never too much, always slightly less than she actually needed. She had been doing this for as long as she could remember. It had seemed like politeness once. Now, standing in the dark library, it seemed like something else, a habit, maybe, or a fear, or both at once. She didn't want to look at it honestly tonight. She was too tired for that. She walked to the door, locked it behind her with Derek's key, and stepped out into the rain. She had a 15-minute walk home. She had done it hundreds of times. She knew every step of it. The cracked paving stone outside the optician's, the smell of the closed fish and chip shop, the narrow passage where the wind always did something unexpected. The rain was cold on her face. She hadn't brought an umbrella. She owned several, accumulated over years of optimistic purchases at the beginning of autumn. But she hadn't brought one tonight because she hadn't planned to stay this late. This was unusual for her. Claire was a planner. Claire was the person who had thought about the contingencies, who had the backup plan. Not bringing an umbrella was a significant oversight. She decided not to mind. The rain was doing something to the town, softening it, turning the sharp edges of buildings and signs into something more approximate, more forgiving. The orange streetlights doubled in the puddles. The clothes shops looked less closed somehow. She walked slowly. This was also unusual. She thought about the email again, and then deliberately, she stopped thinking about it. Not because she had solved it, just because she was outside in the rain and the library was behind her and the email was on a computer that was turned off and the children's books were still in a warehouse, but they would still be there tomorrow, and the conversation would happen when it happened, and the budget would be approved or it wouldn't, and either way, the world would continue. She had not said that to herself in a long time. Either way, the world would continue. She said it again, quietly, in her head. The world would continue. She would continue. The library would open tomorrow at 9, and she would be there at 8:30, and the spreadsheet would get finished, and the email would get sent, and item 31 would remain unfinished for a while longer, because some things took the time they took and couldn't be rushed by adding them to a list. She turned onto her street. Her building at the end, a converted Victorian terrace. Her window dark because she had left before dark and hadn't thought to leave a light on. She had a habit of not leaving lights on for herself. She noticed this now. She added nothing to any list. Her flat was warm. She had left the heating on. That, at least, she had remembered. The warmth hit her as she came through the door, real and immediate. She made tea. Not the complicated tea she sometimes made when she had time, just a bag, in a mug, the kettle, 3 minutes of waiting that she usually filled with something and tonight simply didn't. She stood at the kitchen counter and watched the steam rise and didn't think about anything in particular. This was very unlike her. She took her tea to bed. Her room was small and exactly right, not tidy in the magazine sense. Books on the floor by the bed, her work bag in the corner, the desk covered in things that weren't desk things. She liked it anyway. She changed into pajamas, washed her face properly, the full routine she sometimes skipped when she was tired. She did it anyway. The routine told her body the day was ending, and her body needed to be told clearly. She got into bed. The sheets were cool and then warm. Outside, the rain continued. She could hear it on the window. The same rain she had walked through, the same rain falling on the library and the high street, and Derek's van, and all the people already asleep, and all the people still awake, and all the 47 items on all the lists of all the people like her. She breathed in and out. The spreadsheet would be finished tomorrow. The email would be sent. Laura would be told eventually, in the way Claire always eventually told people things, carefully, honestly, because that was how she was made, and she had stopped apologizing for it. Item 31 would wait. Some things took the time they took. She was 25 years old, and she was doing something genuinely difficult, building a life from scratch in a place she had chosen, making herself useful in ways that mattered, carrying more than her share because she was capable of it. That was not a small thing. She had been treating it like a small thing. It was not small. The part that had walked home slowly in the rain, the part that had stopped thinking about the email, the part that had stood at the library window with her hand flat against the cold glass and just felt the cold. That part was doing fine. That part had always been doing fine. She closed her eyes. The rain fell on Millbrook. The library waited, dark and quiet. She had built part of that. She was allowed to rest now. She slept, not efficiently, not with anything left to be done, just completely, just herself. Just Claire, 25, in a small, warm flat above a wet street, letting the rain do what rain did, quietly, without a list, without an apology, completely at rest. Do this.